Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Welcome to our American Muslim Community Foundation webinar on donor advised funds with Saturna Capital. We're really grateful for your attendance. For those who are going to be catching the recording, we hope that you're doing well. I wanted to just start off with introducing Moneem Salam. He's the Executive Vice President at Saturna Capital, and we'll hear from him later but just gonna give it over to him to share a little bit more about himself and what he does at Saturna.
Yeah, sure. Thank you for that, Muhi. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. My name, as Mu mentioned, my name is Moneem Salam. I'm Executive Vice President for Saturn Capital and Portfolio Manager as well. In my duties, part of my duties are I manage the Amana Income Fund and also the Amana Developing World Fund, and I'm Deputy Portfolio Manager on the Amana Growth Fund. Besides other money I manage for high net worth individuals, and I do that both here in the US and also in Malaysia. So,
Appreciate it, Moneem. So we'll jump into just a basic background of what AMCF is, and then we'll have a further discussion around donor advised funds. My background, I've been in the nonprofit space since 2009. Started AMCF in 2016. We opened up our first donor advised fund in 2017. We also started endowments in 2018. So, we have been focusing in this space and area for quite some time. But just to give you insights into kind of the Muslim nonprofit ecosystem, the Muslim donor ecosystem, there hasn't been much developed in this space. So, why we establish a community foundation, and why we want to be focusing on Muslim philanthropy, those are all things that I will be sharing with you today. So, again, thank you so much for joining and being with us. I always like to start off with insert of Masalik al-Jinan, which is a poem by Sheikh Ahmadou Bamba of Senegal. And he talks about charitable giving as a reason why people will enter into paradise. He talks throughout this poem about the different pathways and how charitable giving is one of them. Because as we live through this life, when we pass, people will want to come back to this world just to carry out additional work that would benefit them in the afterlife. And if we can be more forward thinking about our sadaqah, our zakat, we can be more mindful of establishing a sadaqah jariyah while we are living that will do the work for us for many years to come, inshallah ta'ala. So, a community foundation is a public institution. It's a nonprofit organization on its own, and it's governed by a board of directors, and it has its own donors that it serves, and it's embedded in the benefit of the nonprofit sector and for the community as well. So, in regard to AMCF, our mission is around cultivating donor giving and diversifying funding to advance charitable causes. Our vision is to lead sustainable and strategic Muslim philanthropy for today and future generations. And we do this with our core values of being sacred, strategic, sustainable, collaborative, diverse, inclusive, and do it all with integrity. There is more to AMCF than just myself. I'm one of 4 co-founders, but we have 9 board members, alhamdulillah. We have a long list of advisory committee members, people that we engage in specific areas as we need support. And then the staff, there are 2 full-time staff members and 10 part-time staff. So alhamdulillah, we've been steadily growing, and it is a full team effort that we have so many committed people working on the internal side of AMCF so that we can be community facing. A few of these things I'm going to pass through, and this presentation is also on our website, so you can see it in full at length as well. But ideally, there are 700 community foundations across the United States. Many of them are region focused, some of them are faith focused, but some of the largest community foundations have billions of dollars of assets. Silicon Valley Community Foundation has over $7 billion of assets. The Tulsa Community Foundation has nearly $5 billion of assets. The New York Community Foundation has over $2 billion of assets. Um, but I'm sure there are a lot of Muslims across the country that also put their funds with these regional community foundations. But AMCF is the only Muslim community foundation that exists. So we pride ourselves on that point. And again, we do things in a Sharia compliant manner when it comes to investment opportunities, when it comes to distributing to causes that align with our faith based values. So we want the Muslim community to also partner with us in that aspect. And again, alhamdulillah, like we started off as a small team in 2016 and continuously have been growing and providing more resources into the community. And it's been a long, arduous journey, but alhamdulillah, we're still here. And we look forward to continuing all of the hard work that many board members and other staff members who still aren't part of the team continued early on with. So again, we want to focus on what we're doing this year, what we're doing in the future. And part of that is our success story is who supported our organization. So Alhamdulillah, over 100 supporters, they have sponsored our events in the past. It's because of these institutions that AMCF has been able to be successful. So we have a lot of grassroots partnerships across the country, not only within the Muslim community, but external to it as well. So overall, alhamdulillah, we have over 225 donor advised funds. We have over 25 endowments. We've given out over $21 million, and we have over $7 million of assets under management today. What that and how that translates is through our programs and services, which I'll briefly highlight, and then we'll talk more explicitly about the donor advised funds. So, what we call our donor ecosystem is everything in which a donor can give. So, we have donor advised funds, we have giving circles, we have collaborative funds, and also legacy funds. So, many people, when a loved one passes away, they want to set up a legacy Sadaqah Jariyah account, and we can transition the donor advised funds to legacy funds as well. If you don't have beneficiaries that you want to actively engage in your donor advised fund. We also do next gen engagement. So if you have children that you want to involve in your donor advised fund, we can do that as well. The giving circles are when a group of family or friends come together and want to support common causes. They nominate charities, they vote on them. So it's a democratic way to distribute philanthropy, regardless of whether one person puts in a few $100s or somebody else puts in a few $1,000s. You're nominating one charity and providing learning resources to other people in that giving circle around these causes. And collaborative funds are for a specific shared cause. For instance, AMCF hosts the Collaborative Fund for Palestine, which has given over $750,000 to charities supporting Palestine or working in the US on advocacy related issues. So these are the different ways in which donors can be involved in our own strategic funding areas. And then, of course, independently, you as an individual or as a family can set up a donor advised fund to consolidate all of your giving, invest it for future growth, and distribute it once you are ready to. On the nonprofit side, we always feature as many nonprofits as we can through our Muslim Philanthropy podcast. We also do social media takeovers and allow them to integrate with our followers. Like I said, we host endowments, which are investment vehicles for nonprofit organizations. And we do professional development, which is our social impact accelerator. And we offer one off consulting opportunities and webinars for organizations to share more around best practices in the philanthropic space. So, how we do that, again, I just mentioned the podcast. We also have a Muslim affinity group for any Muslim fundraisers that are part of the Association of Fundraising Professionals. Annually, they have an international conference. We get together and meet with other Muslim fundraisers. And also on a quarterly basis, we do virtual meetings outside of that as well. Annually, we host what's called the Muslim Philanthropy Awards to celebrate institutions, individuals, businesses, all in the charitable giving space. We have a National Muslim Endowment Council, which is all of our endowments working together collectively, discussing best practices, looking into how they can improve their investment policies and planning and grow their endowments. We have the National Muslim Plan Giving Council, which is for accountants, financial managers, wealth planners, estate planning lawyers, all to talk about how trusts and estate plans and donor advised funds can be a more collaborative effort. And lastly, we have family resources on Muslim philanthropic values and zakat planning on our website as well. So I'm going to skip through a few slides, but ideally want to focus on donor advised funds. But we have a lot of stats on who American Muslims are, what their interests are philanthropically, and just more information on American charitable giving statistics. Like in 2023, Americans gave $557 billion. But how much of that is coming from the Muslim community? There are estimates that it could be between $2 to $5 billion from the Muslim community in terms of our zakat and sadaqah and generosity. This is an interesting stat from Giving USA where it states that religion, human services, and education are the top three areas that Americans give to. And then here's some more information from ISPU that talks about the reasons why Muslims give. So they like to give because the feeling that those with more should help those with less, then also that it's a religious sense of duty and that giving actually makes them feel good. So these are some of the reasons why American Muslims give. And American Muslims, when compared to people outside of our faith group, tend to give more to civil rights causes. They were more generous during COVID. They give more towards overseas relief, and they also give more to religious research. But when it comes to houses of worship, people outside of the Muslim faith are actually more charitable, which was really surprising to me. And they're also more charitable when it comes to youth or domestic relief. So, alhamdulillah, there's some good research from ISPU, from the Muslim Philanthropy Initiative at Indiana University, but AMCF is trying to share more of our anonymized data with institutions like Giving USA, DAF Research Collaborative, Giving Tuesday, and Indiana University to showcase more of the impact that faith has on philanthropy. So I'm going to head into what donor advised funds are. So hopefully this is why you wanted to attend and learn more about AMCF and what donor advised funds can do for you. So a donor advised fund, think of it like a charitable savings account. It allows you to put money in, and AMCF is managing that account for you. Whatever money you put into the account has to end up going to a IRS-based 501c3 nonprofit organization. You can put in any type of gift. whether it's cash, stock, mutual fund, ETF, cryptocurrency, AMCF can receive it. And even if it's more complex than that, maybe you have gold or real estate or other types of assets. Again, AMCF can accept it as a nonprofit entity, and you would get the immediate market value of that gift, avoiding a capital gains tax. Because if you were to sell it first, you would get hit with whatever gains and appreciation there were. So AMCF as a nonprofit can accept the donation first, and you transfer those assets to AMCF. Then AMCF can invest the balance for future growth, and then you can distribute to any charity of your choice as long as it's IRS approved and on your own timetable. You can wait 5 years to distribute it, or you can distribute all of it within a few months. It's really up to your own timetable of when you want to make impact. Of course, with zakat, from when you calculate it, you should distribute it within a year. So we help families on the providing tools to calculate their zakat, but keeping track of it is something that you would do individually and know to distribute it when you make your distributions through our system. And we'll take questions towards the end as well, but feel free to uh, type some into the chat, introduce yourself on the chat, and we'll just continue sharing a little bit more around the benefits of donor advised funds. So again, this is just a more descriptive model of what I just shared, where you get to put in funds to your account with AMCF. You get the immediate tax receipt. And think about your time right now. You might be consolidating all of your receipts that you gave in 2024 to file your taxes, right? So if you were to give through a donor advised fund, you would just get that one tax receipt, which makes tax planning that much more efficient. And then you allow AMCF to invest on your behalf. Primarily, we have partnered with Saturna Capital on our investments. And Alhamdulillah, they'll share more on their returns and other things that they have been able to do. And then when we receive the request from you to distribute to a nonprofit organization, AMCF will send a check or an electronic payment to the charity that you choose. So it's one-stop shop for you to do all of your charitable giving. Obviously, with Ramadan right around the corner, it's a good time for you to implement one. And I'll talk a little bit about the benefits of donating appreciated assets as well, so that you can better understand it too. So, for instance, if you were to donate a stock or a mutual fund that you've held for more than 1 year, and instead of selling the stock and then making a cash donation, you will transfer that asset to AMCF as a charitable institution. And this way, you are giving 20% more than if you were to sell it first and then donate, because again, you're avoiding a capital gains tax and you get to take a charitable deduction in the amount of the fair market value. So, in essence, you're giving more to the charity, you're saving on taxes, and whatever cash you have, you can save for your lifestyle, instead of um, spending it on donations. You can reinvest it and you can reset your cost basis and purchase more of the current value of that stock. So it allows you to be more strategic with your finances and maximize your giving as well. I'm going to show you an example of what it looks like within our portfolio, within our portal. So you get a screenshot of kind of what it is when you log in to AMCF's donor advised fund. You can see your fund summary, which will show you your balance. You can see a grant summary, which showcases what you have given to and how much you have given. And then we have other pages that will show you how you can select a charity in the database. It's going to pull through all charities in the IRS, all charities that we've given to in the past. So then you can easily select those nonprofit organizations. So there are over a million nonprofit organizations, but this will allow you to select the right one that you want to fund. And there might be two charities with a similar name. Like just think of how many mosques there are and how many of them have similar names, but you can then specify state and zip code so that you can find the right one to select. Then from there, you can see your history of organizations that you've given to and all of the contributions that you've made to your donor advised fund as well. So there are no minimums to open a donor advised fund with AMCF. We simply suggest that you use AMCF and the donor advised fund experience for 5 years, just to build the habit of utilizing it, and that when you make a distribution to a charity, that it be of $100 or more. You can set monthly payments into your donor advised funds, contributions. You can set monthly distributions out of your donor advised fund. All of those things are possible. And as far as our payment structure goes, it's very competitive on the market. So we are making sure that whether you are at, Fidelity Charitable or Schwab Charitable or Charity Vest or any other place, that we are competitive on the market. But again, we are the only donor advised fund on the market that will be investing in Sharia compliant options. So many of the families who support us appreciate that and trust us because of that as well. Very briefly, just to close out my end of the presentation before I pass it over to Munim, I'm going to share a little bit more about some of our other services. Again, giving circles are a group of families or friends giving together. And we currently manage an American Muslim women's giving circle. They've given out close to $50,000 to 6 charities since they've been operating. And you can join that. Your spouse can join that. A lot of times when a DAF family joins our DAF, we encourage them to join the other giving circles that we have so that we can continue to increase the momentum of our philanthropy as well. The endowments, we host over 20 of them, 25 of them, and they're very similar to how a donor advised fund operates, but they're solely for institutions. So a nonprofit entity will set up an account with AMCF, and AMCF will manage the investment on their behalf. And the charity will either receive the return on investment or put the ROI back into the principal of their endowment for future growth. So these are some of the partners that we have across the country. Alhamdulillah, we've been able to help these charities be more sustainable and future thinking. And there's obviously a long history of endowments or awqaf in the Muslim tradition. So I was fortunate enough to visit Al Qaraween University and Mosque in Fez, Morocco. And this was founded by Fatima Al Fihri as a waqf or awqaf. So it's still operating today after all of these years. So we're trying to revive this tradition within our community to best establish these practices. So that being said, like I said, all of this is on our website, and you can find a lot of this information there. But we want you to join the social impact of AMCF. Again, be part of something bigger. We've given out $21 million to charities, and we want to showcase the collective force that the American Muslim community has. So, with that, these are some other upcoming events. And I see a notice that popped up too. So, we'll try to make sure that doesn't affect us. But otherwise, we have some other webinars that are coming up for you to take advantage of and learn more about other areas that AMCF can make an impact. So I will pass it over now to Monim and let him share more around investments and personal use of a DAF, and then we'll take questions, inshallah.
Sure. Can you stop sharing and then I'll jump on? Okay, I hope everybody is able to see this.
Yep.
So thank you, Mohi, for that great explanation on DAFs and endowments and American Muslim Community Foundation. So Bismillah, alhamdulillah, salatu wassalam, rasulillah. Thank you everyone for joining. I'm going to keep my presentation really brief. I think Mohi did a great job of being able to talk a little bit about the benefits of a DAF and those things. And so what I wanted to do was focus on just basically two scenarios, right? Why is it that maybe you would want to be able to do a DAF? And one of them, I think Mohi did go over, which is using the donor advised fund as a pass-through vehicle, right? Not only, for example, do you get the benefit of having one donation letter coming from AMCF if you donate to like 25 different charities at the end of the year in January, as we're doing now, as you're collating all your taxes or tax paperwork together, you're going to have to, basically, find 25 pieces of documentation that you actually gave money. So it is a big benefit to be able to do that. The other thing that happens is, for those that are more discerning, AMCF does have the charities on their website. They've actually done some research on them. To be able to make sure that they are properly filed with the IRS. They have their 990s. But those type of things matter a lot, and I think that's a great service that AMC provides as well. And then at the same time, what you can also do is allow your when you put the money in, and you're going to be giving it through zakat or through other places in Ramadan for sadaqah, or for year-end for tax purposes, you can basically invest that money while you wait for the right share to come about, or year-end coming about, for exactly what your finances are to be able to make that make that donation. So that's really, really important to be able to keep in mind as well. But the second one that I wanted to talk about a little bit further is actually something where I've personally done it, for myself as well, which is basically using a donor advised fund as a private foundation, right? Now, donor advised fund in the industry is called a poor man's private foundation, and the reason is because you can start off with private foundations are usually for people that have a lot of money. They're going to be donating millions of dollars, and then they can use that in whatever form they want. Well, if you don't have that much, and you have a little bit less than that, like 2,500, as Mohi was mentioning. You can open up a DAF and use it for very similar means, right? One of the benefits for a donor advised funds over a private foundation is that there's no minimum yearly withdrawal rate. In private foundations, it's roughly around 5% or so. In donor advised funds, you can keep the money in there as long as you want to. So there's no minimum to be able to take out. And then what the other thing that it does is, as you begin to put money in there and you want to leave a philanthropic legacy, one thing to think about is maybe getting your kids together and saying, after I pass away, this is the money in the donor advised fund. This is going to be our private pension or private foundation. And so, once a year, whatever it is, you get together, you talk about whatever philanthropic cause you're passionate about. And then from the donor advised fund, money can be taken out for that particular cause. And it could be either on a vote basis, or it could be round robin, where one child gets to decide on what charity it is and makes a presentation, and then everybody does it. And so there's different ways to do it, but really what it's doing is two things. Number one, it's encouraging your kids now to be able to be philanthropic, right? To give money away. But donation and philanthropy are two different things. Donation is somebody asks for money, charity asks, I give it. Philanthropic is really, I'm passionate about a cause. I research the cause. I know where I need to give the money, what are the best organizations, and then I go about doing it. And that is a lot less taught within our community than we should actually. So that's something that I've we've kind of implemented that within our family as well. You can also set up a charter for to govern the account, basically for your family, and say, like, you have to basically, is it on a majority vote? Is it one person making presentation? Whatever it is, how much you want to be able to give? Is it all your earnings for that year, or maybe a partial of it? So all of those things, you can set up a quote a charter. It's not an official document, but it is something like guidelines that you can do for your family as well. I've seen that in other places, clients and otherwise, that have done this, and has really brought the family together, right? As children grow older, they have their children, and people tend to drift apart. This is a great way for people to be able to get together as well. And then what I'll do is I'll really quickly talk a little bit about donating appreciated stocks and or mutual funds. Now I know Muhi talked about this, but let me just give you a scenario, probably make it a lot easier, right? So let's supposing I had $10,000 that I need to donate, right? Or for zakat or for any other purpose. And I'm right now not really sure exactly which charity to give it to. And I want to be able to keep it anonymous. I don't want people calling me up and telling me, give more money because you gave already, those type of things. So what I do is I basically set up a donor advised fund, right? Which is, as Mohi mentioned, a charitable organization. And then I donate the assets into that, right? And I can do this basically every year and be able to set up as a final foundation. The benefit of doing this, right, is that what happens is that the money that you actually put in there, right? So let's supposing I'm donating cash, I'm gonna either sell my mutual funds first, or I'm gonna take it out of my bank account and do that. In this particular case, is selling my mutual funds. If I sell $10,000 worth of mutual funds, right, and I purchased it for $1,000, there's a $9,000 gain, right? And so what happens is out of the 9,000, you're gonna pay 2,000 or roughly 2,200 in taxes, and your effective donation really becomes $7,800. But I can take the same amount of shares that I have, and I can donate the entire amount of just share transfer from your account at Amana and move it over to AMCF. And then for that, there's zero taxes. So your effective donation actually becomes $10,000. So the full value of your donation is actually being used. So it's a great way for individuals to be able to save on capital gains tax. You can do this on any appreciated mutual fund. You can do it on stocks. If you're working for a company and, let's supposing it was NVIDIA, and mashallah, you've done really well over the past 2 years, rather than taking money in your donation, rather than taking it out of your bank account, right? Take it out of the stock that you have in NVIDIA and be able to do that. And then what you can do is you can take that cash that you had sitting, so $10,000 worth of NVIDIA I give away. I take $10,000, and if I'm still really bullish on NVIDIA, I buy more, the $10,000 worth, whatever I gave away to NVIDIA, I buy it into NVIDIA stock. And what that does is it increases my cost basis, right? And that's a great benefit as well. So if I later wanted to sell it, or in a 2 or 3 years from now, and it's appreciated more, I'm paying a lot less in capital gains than I would have if I would have just held on to the stock from the very beginning. So that's just one example of being able to do that. I will stop here, and I know we're about to run out of time, so I'll just leave it up for questions.
Yeah, and we can come back to the meeting through another Zoom link if it unfortunately ends. I apologize for the inconvenience. We renewed our subscription for Zoom, but we can close this out and then just rejoin, and hopefully it will give us the rest of the time. So come back if you would like to answer questions, inshallah. Ask questions, inshallah. All right. Thank you for coming back for the question and A session. So feel free to come off mute, raise your hand. We'll call you one by one to answer your questions. And either myself or Monim can respond and provide more clarity.
Yeah, I had a quick question. Oh, sorry, I should raise my hand, right?
It's okay. Take the floor, Kamran.
Yeah, sorry, it's Mohammed actually. Cameron's my son. The A really quick question. I'm kind of new to this, so let's say if you take your example of donating appreciated stock and it goes into the DAF, what happens after that? Does the DAF sort of liquidate it and then you have options to buy certain Sharia compliant funds, or can you just take me through that process? Or do you keep it as that stock, or
Yeah.
what happens? Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great question. And AMCF has a policy that we liquidate within 5 business days of receiving an asset. We do our best to set a limit order so that you don't lose any value in case there's any change within those 5 days. And essentially, we will liquidate, provide that cash value from the sale into your donor advised fund, and then invest into Sharia compliant options. So we will use your market value to then repurchase Sharia compliant opportunities for you.
Got it. Thank you. Just if a follow-up, if I may, do you choose which funds the money goes into, or do I have a voice in that choice decision?
Yeah. So for right now, we provide you the option to select conservative, moderate, or aggressive. And the portfolio that you select will be indicative of what stocks or ETFs or mutual funds are purchased in that regard. If you put in more than $100,000, then you have more flexibility in determining what your portfolio stock will look like.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Moeen.
Yep. Brother Aladdin.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.
My question is about the stock transfer from my brokerage accounts. How this is done? I mean, this is the logistic of it. How for that the transfer?
So when you depends on what brokerage account you are using. So let's say you're using Saturna Capital. You will provide them with what's called a letter of instruction that will say, I would like to transfer X amount of these shares to AMCF, and we will provide you our brokerage information. But anytime, like let's say you're at Fidelity or Schwab or another brokerage firm, you will have to have AMCF's DTC code, account number, name on the account to make that transfer. And every brokerage institution, some do online forms. Some you have to send a notarized letter. Some you have to do additional forms online or a wet signature even. So there are different ways in which different brokerage firms request the information for a transfer of funds, but you also need to fill out a form on AMCF's website so that we know that these 100 shares belong to you, and you let us know that they're going to be for a certain stock or a certain mutual fund. And then, because when we receive transfers in our brokerage account, whether it's at Saturna or Fidelity, we just receive a notice of shares and number of shares. They don't tell us who it's from. So we need you to fill out the form on our end so that we can match your shares to your donor advised fund.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Any other questions around donor advised funds? A lot of nonprofit charities will receive funds from donor advised funds We like to inform the charity of who it's coming from, unless the donor has specifically said that this is an anonymous gift. So we try to share those reports with the nonprofits upon request, and being forward about it. Like, if you think of Ramadan coming up, there's going to be hundreds of transactions that we're going to be dealing with, thousands really, that we're going to be managing. And we like to inform the charities that they are going to be expecting a gift from a DAF as well. Yes, Brother Aladdin.
I have another question. At the end of the year, now I know that you said that we'll read about what we have donated to the foundation, but now it's provide the report about how this money has been spent, which my donations as well. Just for, I know that I don't need it for the tax purposes, but for the available for me.
Yeah, so we have the tax donation receipt we sent out to all of our DAF families will be one consolidated receipt. So it'll show the total amount given, whether it was stocks or whether it was cash. And we provide that typically like at the end of January to the donor advised fund families, to make their filing for their taxes more efficiently. Was that answering your question, or was there something more specific?
My question is that when we spend the money to distribute it to the it is not required by the IRS, but is it something that's at the end of the year, how the money that I donated have been distributed to the different charities?
Nope, no disclosure needs to be made to the IRS, because your only disclosure is that you gave to AMCF.
Yeah, I understand, but this is for my own records. For example, I want to have a record
Yes.
how that I donated to X and Y and Z.
Yes, you in your login portal will be able to see all of the distributions that you made.
Okay.
And if you give to the same charities, same amounts every year, nothing changes. You can simply select a few buttons and redistribute all the same charities again. So within the portal, you can see your historical contributions into the DAF and distributions out of the DAF. Sister Ola, I see you have a question in the chat directly to me, asking about examples of where money has gone to. So we will provide updates in the portal as well. Like, let's say you want to support our common beliefs, right? So when you open your DAF, you log in, you select our common beliefs, AMCF gets a notification that you've submitted a distribution request. We then, on a weekly basis, 3 to 5 times a week, are processing these distributions. So from the moment that you submit your distribution, it might take 2 weeks for our common beliefs to receive a check. But if they've signed up for electronic funds, it'll be typically within 3 to 5 business days that they have received it. And again, the charity gets notified that they're receiving a gift. We get a report at 30 days, at 60 days, at 90 days if a check has not been cashed. So we follow up at those intervals to make sure that the charities received it, are cashing the checks. And also, we can check on the clear payment status of any of the payments that are going through. So we'll make sure that the funds are being delivered to the charity. Brother Bashir?
Okay, like I said, I missed the first 20 minutes. My question is, at 68 years, can you still open an account? Or I thought you can't take advantage of it until 70 and a half. Is that correct? Am I confused somewhere?
So what you're referring to is what's called a qualified charitable distribution, if I'm correct, right, Munim? So people who have a individual retirement account can distribute instead of taking their required minimum distribution, can give a qualified charitable distribution from their IRA. And typically, these funds need to go to a nonprofit organization. There's a gray area of whether it can be put into a DAF or not. But typically, what we've done is if we do receive funds from an IRA, we will ensure that all of those funds go out within the same calendar year and that there is a grant cycle for it. So it's typically not a donor advised fund, but a grant distribution cycle that will be given to charities who apply for funding from it. So it's a little bit different, but to make sure that we comply legally, we can accept it as a charity, as AMCF, but then restrict it to be distributed to charities on your behalf.
So can I still open a DAF account at 68?
Yes, there's no age limitation to setting
Okay.
up a donor advised fund.
But then the fund have to stay there until 70 or whatever is it, or no?
No limitation on how long you hold the funds either.
Okay.
Again, if you are giving from your IRA, we will help you distribute it directly to charities, because legally, IRA funds should not go to a donor advised fund, but we can accept it as a charity and then do a pass through to the entities that you want to support from your qualified charitable distribution. And Monim, if you want to share any additional information on QCDs, you can.
Yeah, and the only thing I was going to say was that the RMD year age has gone up for a long time. It was 70 and a half, and now it's at 72 and a half. So they did increase it for 2. So you're not required. It's called a required minimum distribution. You're not required to take money out until you're 2 years older. So that's the only clarification for Bashir that I wanted to make.
Okay.
Thank you for the clarification. Ola, your question again. Yes, if you wanted to give to Fajr Scientific or Human Concern International, Islamic Relief, any 501c3 that is IRS approved can receive funding from your donor advised fund. And yes, Isra, you can get a recording of everything along with the presentation and the Q&A. So for GoFundMe or LaunchGood, as long as the campaigns are for a nonprofit organization and not going to an individual, we can send what they would call an offline gift. So let's say that, for example, Human Concern International is hosting a LaunchGood campaign and you wanted to support that campaign, when you write the distribution, you would simply still find Human Concern International, and in the memo, you would write LaunchGood campaign, right? We would send the check to Human Concern International directly, then they would add what's called an offline gift to the campaign once they receive it. So it takes some coordination between the nonprofit, the DAF, but yes, all of those things are possible.
I had 2 quick questions. The first, and maybe this is a kind of a Sharia compliant question, The monies in the DAF, so let's say you put $100,000 in there. I'm assuming that zakatable, it continues to be zakatable, i.e. you pay zakat on that until it's paid out, right? And so that's the first question. Second question, unrelated, just wondering what the exact linkage is between AMCF and Saturna. I'm assuming Amana Funds kind of provides those choices, and you kind of do the front end sort of processing. Is that a fair way to look at it?
Okay, so I'll address both of your questions. In terms of what is considered zakatable, it really depends on your madhab or school of preference. And talking to shayukh, there will be differences of opinion on whether zakat can be invested. There will be differences of opinion on whether once funds are given away to your DAF, legally speaking, AMCF is now the owner of those funds. So would it be zakatable for you? Yes, it's a restricted fund at AMCF, and AMCF will never touch those funds until you tell us to distribute it, right? So these are just some nuances in that, but there are families who will choose not to invest. They will put in an amount and liquidate that entire amount within a few months because they calculate their zakat and they distribute their zakat. There are other families who will invest both their zakat and their sadaqah, and they will distribute their zakat on an annual basis, and they will calculate it, and within that year period allow it to grow and then distribute the entire growth and the original zakat amount. So it's really up to your comfort level. It's really up to what the shayukh you follow will say is acceptable, and we leave it up to the family to employ the strategy that they feel is best for that purpose. Moneem, if you want to share on the AMCF and Saturna opportunity, AMCF has an account at Saturna that we do a pooled investment of all of our users. So we keep track internally. Let's say we have $3 million of investments at Saturna, right? But your portion of it may only be $50,000. Whatever growth is then internally calculated on the ROI to then be distributed equally back to your portion of that investment.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So thanks for the explanation. And also, you can, as Mohi mentioned, there's three different buckets. There's growth, there's moderate and then income or conservative. And so based on that bucket that you choose, that's where they're going to be investing in.
Yeah, thank you. That's helpful because I watched a presentation from one of your colleagues, Monim, recently on Amana funds, and I was thinking of, opening up a fund of funds there, and so that would be separate from this, right?
Yeah, that's separate.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, you can have your own personal investment account with them, and we definitely encourage you to have your own investments, but then it just makes it that much easier to transfer your assets from Saturna to your DAF at AMCF.
Yep. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. These are great questions. I'm really glad that you guys came prepared to ask good questions. And of course, all of these resources will be shared back out. Of course, there's a few weeks before Ramadan. In terms of planning, opening an account, they can be opened up within a day, right? So what the steps are, typically a lot of families want to have a one-on-one conversation with myself just to work through some specifics. And I'm always open to having that conversation. If you feel like you are ready to go without a one-on-one conversation, you're also eligible to fill out what we call our donor advised fund inquiry form. And I'm dropping in the chat the link where it outlines 4 different steps to open a DAF. So filling out the donor advised fund inquiry form, then filling out our MOU, which if you fill out the form on the site I just shared, it'll automatically email you from DocuSign the MOU. Once you fill out the MOU, and before you fill out the MOU, I'm happy to answer any questions. And then you want to register in our portal, and our portal link is also on that site. So once you do those 3 steps, then your account is officially opened. Then you can add funds in. You can add funds in again through cash, credit card, assets, and whatever method you choose will provide you with the information on how to do that. Typically, the cash, credit card, those will be like within 3 to 5 business days, show up in your account ready to distribute. With an asset transfer, it can take 3 to 5 business days for us to even receive it. Then again, we liquidate within 5 business days, and then it will be ready to be distributed from your account. So there is a little bit longer waiting period on assets to then be distributed. And we have an opt-in policy for investments. So if you want to invest your donor advised fund balance, there's a form you fill out, we'll invest it for you. Otherwise, it sits as cash. Now, with Ramadan right around the corner, and maybe let's say you put in $25,000, you know that you're going to distribute $10,000 in Ramadan, you want to invest 15,000, you would just let us know in our forms that that's what you want to do, and you would be able to make those $10,000 worth of distributions. We would invest the 15,000 for future growth, and allow you to see that growth over time. So currently, we update our invested balances on a monthly basis. So when you log in to the portal, you may not see the exact invested value up until the last month. So that's one of the challenges that we're working through. But you can always ask us for an update, and we will always provide you with the balance. It just may not be automated in the portal as you see it. And I understand that we're at the originally time at the 4 o'clock mark, but if people have additional questions, I'm happy to stay on longer. And for those of you that need to go, I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for being part of the conversation with us. And inshallah, it would be an honor to work with you on your philanthropic goals. So I just wanted to say thank you and assalamu alaikum on my behalf, and I'm happy to stay on longer.
Okay, Waalaikumsalam.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.
Wonderful. Any other questions?
I have one question. This
Yes,
is
please.
Bashir. Okay, like I said, I missed the first part. My question is, if I open a DAF account right now, I cannot transfer anything from my 401k or rollover account, right? At this age, I think you have to wait till 73, is it?
Yeah, he mentioned 72.
No, it's actually, it says 73 now, the new.
Okay. So I'm looking it up right now. And even online, it is saying 70 and a half or older to make a qualified charitable distribution. But RMD is usually at 70.
73. Oh, I'm confused. Okay.
Yeah.
But then, okay, my question is, like, say if I'm 68 right now, if I open a DF account, can I transfer from the rollover account? No.
There will be penalty for withdrawing early.
So that was okay.
So theoretically, you can from your IRA, but just understand that there would be the penalty. If you don't have any investments outside of your IRA, then you could always open with cash. But if you have investments outside of your IRA, that would be a good choice to start it with that, and then in a few years do the QCD.
Okay. No, that was actually I wanted to see if we can do from the rollover or IRA account.
Yeah, and always take the advice of a CPA in these decisions.
Okay.
So maybe based on the amount of charitable giving, it could offset the penalty, right? So there are ways in which it could balance out, but talk to your CPA in terms of what
Okay.
that look like.
All right. Thank you.
Of course. Khalid Uncle or Kashif, by any additional questions? I know Shazeen is on our staff, so
Can you hear me?
yes, I can.
No, the question is when you, let's say I put $25,000, I spend 10,000 in Ramadan,
Yeah.
the 15,000 you're going to invest. So there is any limit how long you invest? Or I want to, after 2 months, I want to donate more.
Yeah.
Then you can pull the money and then donate, or you have to wait until something, some time limit for investment.
Yeah, investment holding periods, we like to encourage a minimum of 3 months because on a
Okay.
quarterly basis, we are doing these pooled investments.
Okay.
That may
Okay.
change in the future, but for now, if you were to liquidate all $25,000 and 15K was invested, we would go ahead and liquidate. But again, our preference is a 3-month holding period for investments.
So the investment you do as a group,
Yes.
so you divide into the high risk, medium, low risk, or you put all the money in the same fund?
Again, you will select
I see. Okay.
moderate, conservative, or aggressive. So
Okay.
it's upon your preference.
Okay. Got it. Got it. And this going to be available online to listen to or refer to some people. They can listen again because you ask a couple of
Absolutely.
people to join. It's a big days, work days. Some
Of
people
course.
couldn't make it, you know.
Yeah, we'll put the recording up on YouTube, share the link on our website, email it out to everybody with the presentation.
That'll be great. So we can share some other people because there are some people interested, but somehow they didn't show up. I'm sure they're busy at a job or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
Hey, Assalamu alaikum, Mohim. This is
Okay.
Kashif. Yeah, so I actually sit on the board of Muslim Aid USA with Monim,
Oh, okay,
and
great.
I'm actually from the UK and involved
I can
with
hear.
and yeah, so we set up the Mercy Mission DAF in Europe, which mashallah has been going quite well, and so partly was just to see mashallah the great work that you guys are doing in the USA.
Yeah, I mean, we actually
Yeah.
seed funded Mercy Mission with one of our donors. So
Oh, mashallah,
yeah,
excellent, jazakallah. And yeah, just wanted to touch base, and it was a great presentation and really good to hear the great work that you're doing. And inshallah, maybe we can have another session with, talk about some of the learnings that we've had here, and then hopefully
absolutely.
maybe collaborate a little bit more, inshallah, together. But jazakallah, I really appreciate it. A really good session.
Well, Yakum, my pleasure. Okay,
Okay,
well,
brother. Thank you much. Assalamu alaikum.
okay.
Assalamu
Salam.
alaikum.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.